Well, hello, and welcome to the first episode of Enable, the Disability Podcast, a new podcast for people with disabilities and caregivers and other people with different abilities or people who have loved ones in their lives that may have disabilities or different abilities. And my name is Geoff Herbert, aka DeafGeoff. I'm a hard of hearing reporter for Syracuse.com and the Post Standard in New York. And I also work as a DJ despite being born with a profound binaural hearing loss. And I'm here with...
My name is Kurt Hower, and I'm an operations director here at Advanced Local. I've been with the company a long time, and I've had a disability for quite some time, but have been reluctant to speak a lot about it. So Geoff and I were interested in shining a spotlight on people with disabilities and to help them find the resources they need to navigate life.
That's right. Disability is not a dirty word. We want people to feel comfortable with who they are and to always be able to get the help and resources and support that they may need in their lives, as well as for other people to come into their lives with a sense of understanding of what their needs or their challenges might be. So if you wouldn't mind telling me a little bit more about yourself and your disability to kind of get the ball rolling.
Sure. Disability takes many forms, and there are a whole variety of things, but mine tends to be with my physical limitations and mobility. And back when I was in my early 20s, I started to have problems with arthritis and found out over the years that I have a form of arthritis that is unique in terms of that it attacks the spine. It's called ankylosing spondylitis. And over the years, I've been pretty successful at keeping it in check. But lately, it's become more apparent, and my situation has deteriorated somewhat. So it's more obvious for me. So, I really want to be more transparent about some of the issues that I'm having and share my story with others in hopes that if they're having similar issues that they might come forward and that we could provide them with some of these resources we're talking about.
That's great. Like I said earlier, I was born with a profound binaural hearing loss. I hear about 10% as well as the average person. So you could call me hearing impaired, hard of hearing, deaf. There's also being deaf or hard of hearing is such a broad spectrum. Like many disabilities, there's a lot of different aspects to it or uniqueness to each person and their particular conditions. But I hear about 10% as well as the average person, and I was born that way. So I've been wearing hearing aids my whole life. So to a degree, it's been obvious to people my whole life that I have a hearing loss. Also, the way I speak, I did 10 years of speech therapy when I was growing up, because I had enough hearing that I could learn to communicate orally, but at the same time, most of my hearing loss is in the high-pitched sound. So some of the softer sounds, like the S or the S and the F, those sounds are very hard for me to hear. Like I can say the difference between stale ship and potato chip, but I can't hear the difference. Ship and chip sound exactly the same to me. But at the same time, I've done enough speech therapy and learned how to communicate orally well enough that sometimes people forget that I'm hard of hearing, especially when I work as a DJ. In addition to working as a reporter, I also DJ weddings and parties and clubs and stuff like that, and I love it. Despite the challenges, I love it.
Good for you. Well, I have some challenges as well. I have, I try to take my disability in stride, and I try to focus on things that I can do rather than the things that I can't do. But as recently as last evening, my son-in-law said, "Hey, Dad, I'd like you to go shopping with me. I want to look at a toolbox for Christmas." And he picked me up here, and I attempted to get into his car, and he has a sedan. Well, I had a very difficult time trying to get into the car
Because it's low to the ground.
because it was low to the ground. And in my case, I drive an SUV, so really not a problem for me. But, I think that over time, I've had difficulty navigating stairs. especially my balance is off when I try and go down a flight of stairs. Walking long distances, I can do it, but it can be a challenge for me. I use a handicap placard. And another thing that I've had to come to grips with is my pride and realizing, hey, I've got to embrace and accept who I am and what I can do rather than what I cannot do.
Well, I think you made a great point earlier that, saying that we like to focus on the things that we can do, not just the things that we might not be able to do, or maybe not do as well as other people might be able to. So I'm curious, Kurt, what kind of accommodations do you need or resources or support do you get for your condition?
Yeah, not a lot. I don't need a lot of accommodation, but a few of the things really are important that are important to me are an elevator. Because I don't navigate stairs, it's important that I take the elevator when that's available to me. Again, having a handicap accessible parking space is very helpful. And when I travel, I always book a room that is handicap accessible and that has like a low step shower to get in and out of. Because, climbing in and out of a tub is dangerous for me. And I can't risk falling because along with ankylosing spondylitis comes osteoporosis. So I have frail bones, and I need to be mindful of that. But how about you, Geoff?
Well, I wear hearing aids in both ears, which I think sometimes people get kind of confused about how hearing aids work. A lot of times they think it fixes or it cures hearing loss, but it's not like glasses. It does not correct it. It just simply helps it. So it's a tool that helps me hear better. I also use a headset called a Compilot, and it actually connects my hearing aid directly into any other audio source that I want to. So I can plug it into the television or the computer or my phone, and I can hear things much more clearly with that. I also use subtitles and captions on every video that I can. I also rely pretty heavily on lip reading, so it's great to always see and talk to people in person or through video if I can, because I can hear maybe 10% as well without my hearing aids. Even with hearing aids, maybe it's 50%, but if you add lip reading and visual context, it goes up to like maybe 90%. But even with my hearing aids, I could have my back turned to you and you could be, Geoff, Geoff, Geoff. I have no idea. I don't even hear it at all because you have to kind of get my attention first for me to recognize that something's being said or there's some kind of new sound in the room. So those are all sorts of little things that I've had to do or used to help me with it. But there's still challenges from a day-to-day basis. I am curious, Kurt. You know, one thing that people are always kind of shy about when they talk about disabilities is that they're nervous about pushback or people challenging them saying like, I don't think that you can do this, or they treat you differently because they know you have a disability or a condition. Has anyone ever tried to like push back or make you feel uncomfortable about it?
No, I think in my case, most of that pushback comes from myself. I tend to worry about what somebody might think.
Hmm.
And again, it's more of a pride issue for me than anything else. I know that sometimes people don't always realize I have a disability. So they might wonder, well, why don't you participate in, a social activity or sports? Going to work out at the gym. Those kind of things are more of an issue for me. I've also found that people tend to they want to be helpful. So the few people that I do know or that do know that I have an issue, tend to want to help. And sometimes the help is not warranted. It's something that I can do
Yeah.
myself. But those are some of the issues that I've encountered. How about you, Geoff?
I mean, working as a DJ is sometimes a challenge because people are like, how can you mix music if you can't even hear it? I can hear it. Even without my hearing aids, I could still hear the low end, the bass and the drums, the boom, 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 boom. I could hear that just fine. And even completely deaf people can enjoy music through the vibration. So sometimes that's a challenge to explain that, I can DJ. I also use music mixing equipment, and they show you the waveforms on the screen, and you can set cue points so you know where the start and end of all your songs are, or where you want to start them. And you can also see, the actual image of the audio, the music that's being mixed, and you can see like this is where the vocals come in, this is where the drums come in, this is where the
Hmm.
bass comes in, and I can mix the music that way. It's a lot of hard work, but I put in the time and the effort, and I do it well. To the point that sometimes people, when they hear that I call myself DJ DeafGeoff, they think that I mean deaf like DEF, like Def Jam, like cool. And I always have to explain,
Right.
no, I'm not cool. I'm hard of hearing, which is cool enough for me, I guess. But I did have one interesting situation once when I was in college. I also minored in music industry, and I took a music recording class. And my professor said, if you can't hear all the notes on a piano, how are you going to do this class where you can mix music and record a band? And I said, I've been playing around with music for 10 years at this point. I can do it and I will do it and I'll prove you wrong. And not only was I able to successfully complete the class, we had a band come in, and it was a local college band that was not perfect, so they couldn't play perfectly in sync with each other. They would get out of time or out of tune. But I could correct some of the mistakes that they made without having to re-record it over and over again, because I knew enough about audio editing equipment where you could just cut and paste
Hmm.
different sound and make it all line up. So the band ended up sounding much better than they actually did. And I was able to teach my teacher's assistant, the TA, about things that he didn't know that we could do with audio editing and music recording equipment.
Well, I have a question along those
Sure.
lines. So, how has technology enabled you to hear things and participate as a DJ?
Very much. I mean, when I started out, I was using CDs, and so I couldn't see the waveform. So I was just
Mhm.
hitting press, play, stop. And the only way I could really learn the music was by listening to it over and over again with headphones as closely as possible. But I would, still make note to myself like, this song has a 20-second intro. This song, I want to stop it at this point. Or this song has a 120 beats per minute tempo, and this next song has 119 beats per minute. So this is how I need to adjust it so that it lines up and I can mix it perfectly. Even with that, there were still challenges of mostly relying on the practice in my room at home or mixing it live, because I couldn't necessarily see. I could only just kind of trust my practice and listening to it, which is difficult for me. But now with technology, I can see the image of where the songs start and stop. So I can line that up perfectly. I can take out vocals, I can take out guitars, I can take out drums. And so I can see where all of the different parts of a sound start and begin, and I can mix it all together.
Wow.
There's also interesting stuff with AI where it can analyze a song, and it can tell you what key it's in, it can tell you what beats per minute it is, so how fast or how slow the song is. And then I could say, okay, this song has this many beats per minute, this song has close to that. They're both in the same key according to the program. So I could hit play on the two of them if I adjust the tempo a little bit and play them on top of each other. And even though I might not be able to hear it, in terms of like pitch and tune, as well as the average person, I could still gauge whether or not the mix works.
Okay.
And the technology of the program will tell me, at least kind of point me in the right direction. But I still have to rely a little bit on my own instincts and my own practice, listening to it over and over again to see whether or not it works. Or I can mix it and play it for a crowd, and I can watch them stop dancing and stare at me, what's going on, and realize maybe that mix wasn't the best one. Let's move on to something else, try something different.
Well, not as so advanced as what you're talking about, but something for me that's very simple, but has helped me a great deal is when I purchased a car and it had a backup camera. Because I have limitations about turning my head from side to side, I had to rely solely on mirrors. But now that I have a backup camera, it's much easier for me to navigate my vehicle. And that's been a huge advance. thinking about accommodations too. Since COVID, we've had the ability to work remotely. So that has had a tremendous impact for me in terms of there are times when, hey, I'm not having such a great day and I might need to take a little break. And I've been able to do that. And hey, I need to get away. I need to get up and walk around, that kind of thing. So those are some examples of things that have helped me recently and made a big deal.
Those technology changes, especially since the pandemic, have also been helpful for people like me. Not only can you do more video calls, more people know how to do that or they're comfortable doing it, so I can read their lips when I'm talking to them. But also at the same time, AI has improved in such a way where it's very easy to do live transcriptions of captions for a conversation that you're having with someone.
Yeah.
So even though there's not someone that's listening to it and typing all the words like you would if you were watching the Super Bowl or something like that. Now AI can analyze what a person is saying, and sometimes it can even be predictive, where it will know you started a sentence with these words, and it will fill in the blanks on what you are most likely to say. For
Okay.
example, if I said, "Hi, how are," it would probably guess that I'm going to say, "How are you?" or something similar to that.
Yeah.
And it can fill in the blanks. It can help people understand a lot more in more places.
That's great.
So let's move on to a segment that we've got, which is called Enabling Friendship, because we want to invite all of our guests and all of our listeners to become friends, both at the podcast and of each other, because we want everyone to understand that there are not just professional and day-to-day impacts of disabilities, but also there are sometimes social challenges that pop up. And, we want people to understand that while every disability is different, every person's unique situation is different. Sometimes it feels like you are the only one that are in this situation. And that can be very isolating. And one thing that we hope to do with this podcast is to show people that you're not alone. There are other people with similar situations to you. There are other people who've had similar experiences or similar challenges to you.
Right. I would agree with that. Prior to meeting you, for example, I did kind of feel like I was in a shell. And I was very reluctant to talk to other people. Now, my family knew, and a few of my close friends, but this has really been enriching for me, the fact that you and I have developed a friendship already,
Absolutely.
and that we're doing this to create a safe space for people to come together and talk about their disability, or in some cases, hey, I have a family member with a disability and I'm a caregiver, and I'm stressed out. I need help. So that's really what's was the driving force behind this podcast. And I look forward to that opportunity to share our experience in hopes that other people will come forward and feel, hey, I want to be part of this.
Yeah, so let's have a conversation as friends would, not necessarily just about our disabilities, but also just as people, because we're all people.
Right.
So, Kurt, what do you like to do outside of work?
Yeah, outside of work, I spend a lot of time volunteering in the community. I am involved in a bunch of different organizations, including organizations that help youth. And one of the things that I was asked to do at my church was to lead a youth group. And I looked at the pastor like he had two heads. I'm like, what would you want with an old guy like me? And, I have these limitations because, a lot of the activities and things I can't participate in. So I'm not going to play sock'em. I'm not going to play soccer, those kind of things. But what I can do is share my life experiences with people. I can help with other organizations raise money. I can help provide leadership and direction and those kind of things. So I kind of tend to rely on the skill sets or maybe some of these God-given gifts that I have to help me help others. I'm also very grateful that I have a family that loves and supports me. I have two adult children. I have a daughter and son. They both have families. And my wife and I are very blessed to have three beautiful and healthy grandchildren. So they take up a lot of my time. But what about you? I know that you got a lot going on as well.
Oh, I'm always busy. I mean, I've got two kids of my own. My wife and I have two daughters. They're not adults yet, but my oldest is about to start driving, so that's something that's occupying a lot
Oh
of my
boy.
space and mental capacity. And my youngest is 10, and my wife and I and the girls and I, we just love to do a lot of the same things that ordinary every family likes to do. We like to watch movies and TV shows, go to concerts and things like that. Concerts are obviously a challenge for me because I might not be able to hear everything or all the lyrics as well. So I try and get tickets for some place where I can be close enough to see the singer on stage and I can read their lips if possible, or at
Okay.
least be able to see a video screen where I can read their lips if I can. With movies and TV shows, I always watch them with closed captions or subtitles. Did you know, Kurt, that if you go to the movies at the theater, some movie theaters, including Regal, will give you special glasses that show the caption
I
for any movie that you see?
I had no idea.
Yeah,
No
they're kind of
idea.
heavy. They're a
Yeah.
little difficult to wear, but you can get all the subtitles and you can read everything that everyone's saying, but it also adds in things like rumbling noise or a scary sound, quiet, contemplative music. So, sad, part of the movie or something like that. So I like to do all of those things. I also love music and a DJ on the weekends a lot during the summer, especially for weddings. And I also work as a motivational speaker. I love to share my story and my experiences with other people who have disabilities, whether they're hard of hearing or something else in their life, as well as connect with caregivers that have, had these challenges with people in their lives as well. And
Right.
always try and remind them that, they can do anything that they want to do. We can do anything that we want to do, but we also need the love and support of our family and friends.
Right. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Speaking of family and friends, how do you connect with people socially, or how do you find people to connect with socially?
Yeah, I don't have a large group of friends outside of here, more acquaintances because we spend so much time with our family. But we keep busy. We do a lot with the grandkids, and we go on trips and those kind of things. But some of the simpler things in life, I have a couple of miniature Datsuns. So Amy and I, we just enjoy going for a car ride in the countryside, and we do visit folks in our church and those kind of things, shut-ins, people. I also have a friend who has a disability, and he's pretty much homebound. So I look for things like that to do. How about you?
Well, I'm in part of a lot of online communities, and so I have a lot of
Okay.
friends, especially on Facebook and things like that, where other people, especially who are hard of hearing or deaf, where I can connect with them and talk to them, and we can share our own experiences, our own challenges. Sometimes it's just reacting to a news story, or there's for example, one thing that we were excited about, I think this was last year or 2 years ago, there was a Marvel superhero who was deaf, and Echo, I think it was called.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was something that was cool for us to see. It wasn't really for me personally, but it's always cool to see that kind of thing pop up in pop culture. To see that kind of representation on screen. When was the first time that you saw somebody that you felt like you could relate to or connect with, whether it's in a movie or a TV show or in general in life?
Yeah, I think it's only been in the past few years that people with disabilities have become more prominent in media. I noticed this year in particular, we just celebrated the International Day of Disability or for people with disabilities. I noticed that a lot more organizations are getting behind supporting causes, or hiring practices, any of those things. But I can't say that I've seen a lot of that. When I was a kid, I remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I
Yeah.
don't know if you
I
recall.
remember Mr.
Yeah,
Rogers'
all
Neighborhood.
right.
Of course, Daniel
So
Tiger. Yeah.
so he had a friend, and if I'm right, and if my memory serves me right, his name was Geoff, and he was a young man that because of spina bifida, some other things, that was in a wheelchair. And I distinctly recall that he visited Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And some years later, Mr. Rogers was getting recognized for his work in children's television. And the young man happened to surprise him when he received the reward. So I think that's the earliest memory I have of something like that.
Oh, that's really
So,
cool.
yeah.
I've seen characters named DeafGeoff before. After I came up with the name DeafGeoff for myself, I've called myself that since I was 12 years old. But there's like a Garbage Pail Kids trading card that's called DeafGeoff. There was a character in a not so great 80s movie about a cop who goes undercover as a student, and he meets a student who is hard of hearing, and his name is DeafGeoff. But the first time I saw someone that I really related to or connected with was in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I think it was the
Hmm.
fifth one, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, which was not the final movie in the series at all. But they had a character who was hard of hearing. He wore hearing aids. He was not completely deaf. He mostly spoke orally, verbally with other people. But he wore hearing aids. And I was like, that's exactly like me. That's exactly my situation. And then Freddy made his hearing aids explode and killed him. And, that was the end of his story. But it was very nice. It was very fun for me to see someone like me on the screen and to, feel like I'm not alone. And I think that's very important for people to do and understand. And so that's why I'm hoping that, this podcast can help other people recognize that as well.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say that we're very fortunate. We both work for an organization who supports people with disabilities, and we have a tremendous amount of benefits available and resources available. And it was interesting for me that a lot of people didn't know about that.
Yeah.
And we have learned through some research and surveys that we've done that that was an issue, and we're in the process of addressing that now. But I think that if people do a little bit of digging, whether it be with their place of employment or, like you said, online, there are a tremendous amount of resources available, support groups, different things like that. And, this has kind of been a lifelong learning process for me in terms of, in my disease in particular. There are a lot of pharmaceuticals now, biologics, different things that can slow the progression of my disease. And they're tremendously expensive, but there are programs that can help offset those costs, and they're always developing something new. So if one thing doesn't work, you can try something new. But yeah, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of share our experiences and learn from others who have similar situations.
Absolutely. We're going to have lots of fun guests on the podcast to talk about their own experiences and their own disabilities and their own challenges, as well as caregivers or organizations that have helped people with their own disabilities. One thing I wanted to ask yourself, Kurt, was what do you wish more people knew or understood about you? Whether it's a personal preference or a terminology that you prefer, or anything that maybe people don't know about you that you wish they did.
Yeah, I would just say, in terms of my personal situation, is that people value me for what I bring to the table. So although I might have a deficit in one area, in another area, I might have a lot to offer. Whether it be with my employer, whether it be in a community organization, whether it be in my family, those kind of things, is that people with disabilities, they do have something to offer and bring to the table. I recently saw a commercial for Jersey Mike's, and they were attempting to hire people with intellectual disabilities. And they have the Best Buddy program that they partner with. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to get somebody that never would maybe get out in society and have an opportunity to bring something of value to an organization and serve others. So How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I agree very much entirely. A lot of times people focus too much on what they can't do, or they assume that because they can't do this, that they can't do X, Y, and Z also as well. And so sometimes there's that trepidation or that nervousness about talking about it or talking to them about it. So one thing I would hope that people could understand about a disability is that they shouldn't have to feel like they can't talk about it or that they shouldn't talk about it. Disability is not a dirty word. It's something that, most people, a large number of Americans and people globally have some form of disability. As many as 10% or 20% even of Americans have some form of hearing loss. It's probably even higher than that because sometimes people don't get tested as they grow older in life. Older people, for example, naturally tend to lose their hearing over time, and they get shy about it, and they don't want to get hearing aids because they don't want to look like they're funny
Right,
or different,
right.
and they don't want people to ask questions about it or treat them differently. And so rather than get the help or support that they might need, such as a hearing aid, they tend to withdraw, and they don't go out as much. They don't go to the movies. They don't go to dinner with friends. They tend to avoid those social situations. So
They
they don't
suffer
have to
in
say,
silence, kind of.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and they don't have to say why or excuse me, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to say I'm sorry if you didn't understand someone. You should say, excuse me, can you please repeat that? And they should be comfortable repeating it. I think sometimes people are afraid to just simply ask for help like that. Like, can you repeat that, please?
Point taken.
So we're coming up to the end of our first episode here. Are there any closing thoughts that you would like to share, Kurt?
Yeah, I'm new to all of this,
Okay.
Geoff, and I know that you have a great deal of experience here, but this is a bit of a learning opportunity for me, and I really look forward to the opportunity and to hearing from others and learning from others. And I think we have a lot of great guest speakers planned in the coming weeks and months. And I value the opportunity to learn with others.
Yeah, as Kurt mentioned, I do have experience in radio. I worked for 10 years in radio in Syracuse, New York, and I have been out of the radio game for a while. So it's really fun to do something in that medium again. And I'm also really excited to do something that focuses on a topic that is important to me and important to a lot of people. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds. I'm really excited to talk to a whole bunch of different people on this.
Right.
We also want to encourage people to like and subscribe to the podcast, of course, and share it with your friends and your family, especially anyone that you know that has a disability. We would love to get them involved and become a part of this community as well. We're also going to be on social media as at Enable Podcast, all one word, ENABLE PODCAST. Sorry, that's an old school radio thinking way, but you've got to spell it out anyway. But we are Enable, the Disability Podcast. My name is Geoff Herbert, aka DeafGeoff.
And my name is Kurt.
Thank you very much for tuning in.